Time now for an update on the business news, and the race is on to take humans to the digital world. Metaverse is becoming an industry, and that calls for new standards. Yuka, tell us more.
Well, Thomas, tech companies and watchdogs are trying to keep this emerging industry on the same page so users can travel smoothly between different digital worlds. On Tuesday, Meta, which changed its name from Facebook, and other tech giants like Microsoft and Sony formed a group to foster development of industry standards that would make it easier for developers to build across different platforms. The Metaverse Standards Forum has many of the biggest companies working in the space, from chip makers to gaming firms, as well as global standard-setting bodies like the World Wide Web Consortium. Notably absent, though, Apple, as well as Snapchat and game company Niantic. Apple has yet to announce any plans for a VR headset officially yet, but is expected to do so soon, which would put it in direct competition with Meta. With that, let's have a check on the real-world financial markets. Now, European shares dropped at the open, not able to keep up the momentum from last night's strong finish on Wall Street. As you can see, their major indices all down by more than 1% at the open. A sea of red was as well in Asia, amid renewed fears about inflation gripping investor sentiment. Seoul's Kospi dropping more than 2.5%. Meanwhile, the Japanese yen has come under renewed pressure. The currency hit a fresh 24-year low against the US dollar earlier this Tuesday, currently traded at around 136 yen per dollar. Now, last September, $1 was worth about 108 yen, and the currency's decline has accelerated in recent weeks, shedding 18% since the start of this year. This is largely because the gap between the Bank of Japan's monetary policy and those of central banks in the rest of the world keeps widening, prompting investors to move their assets to the US dollar to earn higher interest, while rates remain below zero for the yen. In Egypt, the tourism industry is reeling from the impacts of the war in Ukraine. Previously, Russians and Ukrainians had been the top visitors to the seaside resort of Sharm el-Sheikh. Now the town is looking for other markets to replace them. Ellen Gainsford has more.
These days, it's not difficult to find an empty sun lounger in a Sharm el-Sheikh resort. Previously, Ukrainians and Russians had been among the town's top visitors, making up 31% of tourist numbers in Egypt last year. But since the war in Ukraine, there's been a huge drop in their numbers. Many travel companies have had to cut back on staff due to a lack of demand.
We have started doing rotating shifts. Salaries have gone down. There are people who are on leave at home with partial salary because there's no work. There is no business at all now. It has impacted the workforce. Now nearly 90% of our workforce are off work.
Tourism accounts for around 15% of Egypt's GDP. The sector was just beginning to recover from a dip during the pandemic, but it's now facing fresh difficulties. The travel industry hopes to make up the numbers with holidaymakers from other countries.
To compensate for the Russian and Ukrainian tourists with new markets, we can do that. We can open new markets. We just need airline routes. If we have the airlines that can carry all these tourists to give us access to new markets.
Since the start of the war, Egypt has turned its attention to attracting tourists from Western Europe and the Gulf. But while Russian and Ukrainian tourists would travel to Sharm el-Sheikh all year round, many Western Europeans are only seasonal visitors looking for sunshine in the winter months.
Last year's Tokyo Olympics were unlike any other summer games, postponed for a year and held under tight restrictions due to the pandemic. Now the final price tag of the event has been revealed. It cost 1.4 trillion yen, just under 10 billion euros, nearly double the figure quoted in the city's bid to host the Games. Expenses swelled even before the coronavirus pandemic, including for the rebuilding of the new national stadium. Critics say, though, that the real cost would be twice as much if longer-term infrastructure investment and security measures were also included. And that's it for business.
Thank you very much, Yuka Waye.